book, Dr. Horner, because of the fact, as you know, people of our theological background, the sovereign grace background, sovereign grace theology, some call it Calvinistic, some call it Reformed. There are different eschatological views held by people with our similar backgrounds. Probably your view here regarding Israel is a minority among us today, but Future Israel has only been recently published by Broadbent and Holman. What led you to write this?
Well, it goes back many years. The book has taken about 10 years in the writing, actually, Chris. And I'm a pastor, and I believe in the full authority of the Scriptures. The Word of God, indeed, is truthful, and I've been expounding it for many years. And as I expound, I'm expounding in an expository manner, and especially take books like Hosea and Zechariah and Romans and Hebrews. And as I've gone through these, because I have mixed, as you have already indicated, in what we'll call sovereign grace or Calvinistic circles, I have been confronted with other views than what I believe the Scripture's saying. Mm-hmm. And it's developed over a long period of time, but it's gradually all come together, and so here it is.
Now, we already heard the glowing response of Dr. John MacArthur to your writing of this book. What has been some of the other response?
Well, again, of course, if someone's interested in it, if you go to Amazon.com, you'll see there details about it. You'll read 6 reviews. They are very wonderful reviews. And frankly, I would say that 95 to 98% of the responses I've had thus far have been just, frankly, very glowing, and they have sort of just been wonderful. But I have had others too, some questioning what I'm saying, and especially from the Reform camp, I've had some rather amusing ones, really, and I'm watching the blogs a little bit, but I am planning to have a website up very soon called Future Israel Ministries, in which I can then, of course, interact and put more up about this. But overall, it's been good, but I'm not so foolish as to believe because it's so new that it will stay this way. I'm sure I'm going to get some pretty heavy response. In fact, my elder daughter said to me, Dad, she said, when this book comes out, you better wear a flak jacket.
Well, you know, you've really got my interest peaked. What were some of the responses that you found humorous?
Well, one man says that when he read the book, he felt like flinging it across the room, and that it took him 3 weeks to recover his sanctification after he read it.
Oh, that is humorous.
Yeah, I was amused by it too, I'll tell you.
What is the main thrust of Future Israel?
The main thrust really is about the question right today. I mean, we've got the nation of Israel, we've got Jews around us, you've got conflict in the Middle East, but the real bottom line issue is this. Has God, as it were, covenantally regarded his people now as passé, as persona non grata? Are they now ethnically, nationally, and territorially, are they all sort of, past history because of their sin of unbelief and so forth? And therefore, because the church, the Christian church, has been dominant for so many centuries, is the Christian church now the one who's taken over those promises? And therefore, is the church now the new spiritual Israel, so that every Christian is now a sort of a spiritual Jew? That's the big question. Or has God still got a distinct future covenantally for the nation, the people of Israel?
Mm-hmm. Well, just out of curiosity, since you just brought up the claim by many, if not most, in the theologically reformed camp of Christianity, of being the church being spiritual Israel, how do you respond to 1 Peter 2:9 and 10? But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. For you once were not a people, but now you are the people of God. You had not received mercy, but you now have received mercy. Isn't he speaking to the church here?
Well, now, that's a good question, and I can't go into it in detail exegetically, but it's dealt in in depth in the book, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Major question is this: who is Peter writing to? Even Patrick Fairbairn, and he is well known for not having views similar to my own. Patrick Fairbairn says that epistle is written to Jews mainly. Now, when you see it in that perspective, then that verse takes on a different meaning. I can't go into more details, but I've just given you some things to think on there. It's a question of who he's writing to.
The subtitle of the book, quite a provocative subtitle, Why Christian Anti-Judaism Must Be Challenged. Now, is anti-Judaism different from anti-Semitism?
Yes, I would agree. In a matter of gentleness, I think anti-Judaism is a little softer term. And I've used that very purposely. I think there are some references maybe to anti-Semitism, but let me explain it this way. Anti-Judaism, I would say, is where you get a theological opposition to the ongoing existence of ethnic and national and territorial Israel. It's a conviction of Christians who study the Scriptures and they say, I think God has given the nation over, he's given to the Gentiles, and it's over for the nation of Israel. Now, that's theological. You get anti-Semitism when you move more into the ethnic gut level of opposition, which becomes emotional, and frankly, of course, it becomes very evident in Europe over even several recent centuries.
Yes.
You've had anti-Judaism, which is just right in the core of a person's being. They hate the Jews. Now, I would add this, that anti-Judaism is a softer term. It's theological. I would only offer this modification. I think it's possible, and I've seen this in what I've read. You can gradually glide across from anti-Judaism into anti-Semitism. But it depends who you're reading. But anyway, that's the main difference as I see it.
You often refer to replacement theology or supersessionism. What do you mean by these terms?
Right. These terms are commonly used. Some of the people who would be very much against what I've written don't like the word replacement theology. I have read many, and they say, I don't believe in replacement theology. Well, then we move on to another term, supersessionism. Replacement theology is saying the church has replaced Israel. Supersessionism is saying the church has superseded Israel. Now, in my reading of many writers in this regard, I have to say it frankly, they do a bit of twisting and turning here, and they come up with other terms like fulfillment, well, the church has fulfilled Israel, or absorption, the church has absorbed Israel, or progression, the church has a progression from Israel. There's transference, expansion. I mean, you get all these other terms, but here's the bottom line. It is this: what is the estimate of the Jew, the nation, the land today? Has God got any covenantal interest? Now, when you go to these people, they say, no, that's over. So, whatever term you use, we end up finally with the same conclusion for these people. They say God now covenantally has no place for the Old Testament nation, the Old Testament Jew, the Old Testament land.
Is your book about dispensationalism?
That I've read some people on blog sites saying, Barry's dispensationalist, and I guess that's guilt by association with John MacArthur. Look, I don't want to get into it, but let me put it very clearly. This book is not about dispensationalism. For instance, I would just raise the question. I've quoted at length from Horatius Bonar, who's a great Reformed Presbyterian writer, J.C. Ryle, great Anglican sovereign grace man. I would put the question, is J.C. Ryle a dispensationalist? Is Horatius Bonar a dispensationalist? Of course, the obvious answer is no. So we're not dealing with that. I am premillennial, but even that is made to be somewhat low-key. I'm just taking the bottom line of what is the future hope for national, ethnic, and territorial Israel.
Yeah, you just mentioned Horatius Bonar. In the book, you contrast Augustine and Calvin with Horatius Bonar and Charles Spurgeon. What's your conclusion here?
Well, yes, I did that purposely. Augustine, again, you read him. You have to really go back before him with Chrysostom. Chrysostom was really rabidly anti-Semitic. What he says about the Jews is quite disgusting. Then you have immediately followed by Augustine.